washes up on a South Georgia beach and it has everyone scratching their heads. Is it a shark? Is it some kind of sea monster?
Did you know that 71% of Earth is covered in water? But we have only explored around 5% of the ocean. The 95% that is unexplored is because it's either too cold or dangerous for humans to dive. Recently, however, some government authorities have stepped up to the task, and whatever you didn't know about the ocean, you are about to find out now. From strange creatures to lost cities, here are some of the strangest things found underwater. 12. Giant rat in Mexico sewer. If you have a fear of rats, you might want to take a deep breath for this incredible finding. Rats are one of the most disgusting rodents to ever exist. But what happens when they evolve and become bigger than humans? Wait, this isn't something you have to imagine, because we are going to tell you exactly how. So some years back, sewer workers in Mexico were cleaning up the sewers. Not necessarily to make it clean, but to unclog it. Yes, the sewers were clogged, and that could have easily caused big issues. But little did they know that what was causing the blockade was something they had never imagined. As they went through their work, they stopped in their tracks at the sight of a large animal. It was a rat, and it was staring right at them. Upon further investigation, they found that it was not actually a real rat. Instead, it was a rat prop that had fallen in the sewer from a Halloween costume. Rats actually don't grow that big, so don't worry about what may crawl out of your pipes tonight. 11. Waste.
That when plastics float out at sea, they actually act as a contaminant sponge.
The ocean is filled with over 5 trillion pieces of plastic waste. For context, even the richest man in the world is not worth up to 5 trillion. But that is how much waste is in the ocean. We, as humans, tend to see the water as a large garbage bin that has a bottomless pit. So whenever we eat something or drink our favorite beverage close to a large body of water, we just dump the empty wrappers there. We have thrown so much waste into the ocean that a large vortex filled with over 700,000 tons of plastic waste has formed right there in the middle of the water. This vortex is called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and this has to be one of the greatest heights of danger we have placed the Earth in. This waste problem has led to the shutdown of waterways. Lakes have had to be shut down and drained just to get rid of the waste, and the amount of debris found under the waters was insane. In a small go park in Los Angeles, around 35 tons of waste was retrieved after it was shut down. What's more disappointing is that we are not at the end of the waste problem. Every year, we produce over 8 million tons of plastic waste from synthetic clothes, candy wrappers, and other items.
At a certain point, plastic becomes part of the ecosystem.
We are at the risk of seeing certain marine life go extinct because of our waste disposal problem. So when next you are at the beach or a lake, throw your waste in a bin or take it back home with you if there is no disposal system around. Waste is the least shocking thing that has been found underwater. The next finding would shock you to your bones and make you rethink playing around in water. 10. Potential murder weapon. Yes, you heard right. You see, when you watch cop dramas, the happenings in each scene are not so far from the truth. When a criminal has been running and is about to be caught by the police, they throw their crime weapon inside a nearby river and go about their lives like they didn't just do something weird. Well, it turns out that this occurrence doesn't just happen in movies. While doing construction on the Tempe Town Lake in Arizona, the water in the lake was drained.
Construction begins on the new Town Lake Western Dam system, and who can forget those images from 4 years ago?
To the surprise and dismay of everyone present, multiple pistols and a knife were retrieved from the floor of the lake. If that lake never got drained, the world would have kept on spinning and the guns would still be there till this day.
Barren Tempe Town Lake exposing secrets. Police saying tonight that they are testing the weapons found at the bottom of the lake.
So if you enjoy diving and keeping random things as a souvenir, you might want to check that. Or else, you just may be walking yourself in a murder case. With weapons being found in the Tempe Town Lake, it makes us wonder how many more weapons are in other places that are just waiting to be found. Do you have a theory on which lake should be drained next to uncover more weapons? Let us know.
It'll in there a minute. Look at that!
While you are thinking about that, here's the shocking thing that was found in this Paris canal. 9. Garbage in Canal St. Martin. Paris is a beautiful city to behold with its hotspots and the iconic Eiffel Tower. But underneath all that is an insane amount of garbage that not even the local authorities were prepared for. One of the most attractive places for tourists in Paris is the Canal Saint-Martin. It runs through 5 districts, and people are able to use it as a means of direction when they are in the city. But as much as the canal was deeply admired, there was something more sinister going on underneath. The thing is, the canal is almost never cleaned. Decades upon decades, tourists visit the canal, locals pass by it, but Canal Saint-Martin had never been cleaned. That was until 2016. The French government was like, you know what? Let's drain this canal and get it cleaned. It shouldn't be that bad. Little did they know that it was actually that bad, and maybe even worse. One of the first things that marveled people at the bottom of this canal was motorbikes. Not 1, but 100 motorbikes. They were probably thrown there by tourists who rented them, because how does a bike fall off the bridge of a canal and no bodies were in sight?
We're going to remove all the waste, and once everything is empty, we're going to start the maintenance operations on the base and the walls of the canal.
They also found a pistol at the bottom, which was handed over to the police. Considering that carrying a firearm is illegal in Paris, it makes us wonder who was responsible for throwing a pistol into the canal. Anyway, moving on. After draining over 23 million of water from the canal, 45 tons of waste was removed from the canal. It's easy to point fingers and blame tourists for the garbage in the canal, but remember that Paris also has local citizens who live there. Also, there is a bar close to the canal, so it's not surprising that some drunk people may lose their items in the canal. Since 2016, the canal hasn't been cleaned again. Could it be contributing to the smells tourists in Paris are now complaining about in recent times? Well, we will never know, but something we do know is that a literal monster was captured underwater in 2015, and when you see it, it may reshape everything you think you know today. 8. The Eldrich Horror. In the deepest parts of the oceans, there are many strange creatures. They are not always entirely new, but they appear different because they have adapted to the immense water pressure and lack of light. Some of them have bigger eyes than normal and a really rough texture on their body. Sometimes these creatures are hard to explain, but the most horrific one was this spaghetti flying monster. How exactly did this spaghetti get underwater? And why was it flying? This monster was captured by oceaneering workers and sent to the Scientific and Environmental ROV Partnership using existing industrial technology. It's fine if you can't remember all that, since they are simply called the Serpent Project. The group received the video and immediately got to work trying to understand what it was. Where does the head even start? And what exactly are those tentacles? How many are there? They were able to ascertain that it was Bathyphysa conifera, essentially a type of siphonophore. Don't ask us what it means, we don't know either. But what we do know is that it is a colonial animal, making it a collective life composed of different individual animals. That pretty much explains why it looks that way. This may be a stretch, but we're sure you all have friends that will likely eat this if it were served to them as seafood. Anyway, strange creatures aren't the only thing found underwater. Many times there are entire cities and buildings, just like the next town that surfaced from underwater. 7. Old Detroit. One of the most fascinating things underwater has to be lost cities, and maybe even lost civilizations. But do you know that not all cities underwater are from ancient times? Some aren't even from millennia ago, and they are not always Greek cities. In 2015, the once bustling city of Detroit stood still as the water level of the Detroit Lake went down and revealed an old town that had been long lost.
Well, it was the lack of rain and the drought last summer that helped reveal some of that rich history here at Detroit Lake.
Detroit used to be an outgoing city at some point and slowly developed into a place for young Americans to start life and follow the supposed American dream. But over time, that once bubbling city slowly became a shadow of itself as companies started to take advantage of the people. They didn't stop at taking advantage of the people. They went ahead to build a dam and flood the entire city. After what we can call the Great Flood, the old city of Detroit soon became submerged underwater and new apartments and companies were built. This led to the city of Detroit that we now know that is crawling with poverty. But how exactly did the old city resurface? After the flooding in 1953, life moved on as normal until 2015, when the water levels reduced drastically.
You do have to dodge the floating mattresses and the trash cans, though.
It brought an old wagon to the surface that was half buried in mud, and it seemed to have been built over 100 years ago. It was rare to find a relic in Detroit, so this wagon was quite interesting to see. The finding was a testament of why we need to stop doing harmful things to the environment to protect what's left of our cities. However, some of the things that have been discovered underwater didn't get there through universal disasters. The next finding is so tragic that you may need to take a deep breath before we dive in. 6 cars with bodies. Many times when we hear of missing person cases, our first thought is usually them being abducted. But what if we told you that maybe we need to start looking inside the ocean when we hear people have gone missing? Hear us out. In 2013, Oklahoma police found 2 cars submerged underwater.
2 old cars investigators pulled from Lake Foss, the remains of 3 people.
But the cars didn't just magically appear at the surface. They were testing out sonar equipment when both cars were discovered, and it led to an uproar across the United States. Inside the cars were a total of 6 bodies, leading to the question, how did they get there? As they investigated, they opened a Pandora box of secrets, which revealed a lot, but probably provided closure to those involved. The first car seemed to have gone missing in the 50s and had an elderly man with his friends inside. The second car went missing around the 70s and contained 3 teenagers who had been reported missing years ago. Imagine how much relief their family members would feel now knowing exactly where their children have been. It's tragic, but the police have finally been able to close a cold case that had been in their archives for over 40 years. We don't really know what happened and how the cars ended up in the lake.
They were using new sonar out on the lake and pinged the large metal.
But we know that it solved over 40-year-old mysteries. And if you think you have seen the worst at the bottom of the ocean, there is a whole lot more that we haven't shown you yet. And now to our discovered pick. In their quest for new discoveries, the Chinese government drained a lake. But in all they expected to find, a mermaid wasn't on the list. It wasn't just 1, but 2 mermaids. Since the government is tight-lipped about issues that may cause mass panic, a whistleblower revealed the information. But since then, the informant has mysteriously disappeared, and the Chinese government has taken people's attention away from this underwater discovery. While this remains a mystery, let us know in the comment section what you think about it with the hashtag #DiscoveredTopic. 5. Underwater Stonehenge in Lake Michigan. A while back, we talked about the lost city of Detroit being found underwater. But sometimes it's not entire cities that are lost underwater. In some cases, it's proof of life and the extent of human intelligence that are found underwater. A perfect evidence of this are the Stonehenges that were found under Lake Michigan in 2007. It was discovered by archaeologists who were diving in the Grand Transverse Bay. They were looking for shipwrecks but stumbled upon something else more interesting. It was what seemed like a pile of rocks, but that was until they developed the image they took and found out that it was more than that. The stones seemed to have carvings that seemed like the drawing of a mammoth or mastodon. A further look into the structure made them see that the rocks weren't just placed randomly. They seemed to form a circular pattern, which was similar to modern-day Stonehenges. Dating the rock also revealed that it was placed there 9,000 years ago, a few years after the Ice Age. Some historians have claimed that it was a meeting site for the original inhabitants of America. However, more skeptical historians claim that the circular arrangement of the rocks are just random glacial deposits with no historic significance. Well, we are not exactly scientists, but it makes more sense to believe that the rocks have historic significance to the indigenous people. While scientists continue to debate history, one aspect of history they cannot deny is World War II. And recently, they have uncovered some weapons from the devastating war underwater. 4. World War II weapons. Years ago, authorities in Los Angeles found out that the sea lions in their water were developing cancer. Through a survey in 2021, they found 25,000 barrel-like objects that contained toxic chemicals. These chemicals were proven to have been the cause of the cancer in the sea lions. But how exactly did the barrels get there? Well, we can trace it back to World War II. Underwater dump sites off the Los Angeles coast were discovered, and they were filled with ammunition from the war.
There appears to be a massive dumping ground of military weapons from World War II.
Some of these weapons included anti-submarine weapons and smoke machines. Many war weapons and pyrotechnics were dumped in the water, and we don't think we can ever understand the reasoning behind it. Wouldn't it have been easier to recycle the weapons into something else? This also makes us wonder how much weapons were created during the war, and the residues were enough to poison marine animals. No matter the amount, shouldn't it be at least illegal to dump weapons in the sea? And who would get punished for doing that? There are so many questions with very little answers available, but one answer we sure have is that there are definitely some explainable findings underwater, as not everything remains a mystery. 3. Steam shovel. In 1975, a lover of artifacts set out on a mission to find the steam shovel that was used to build the Edenville Dam. His name was Bill Oberleuer. According to Bill's son, he likes to take junk home and just have them for keepsake. So when he got the chance to take the biggest junk home, he grabbed it. He set out on an expedition to retrieve a steam shovel that was used to build the Edenville Dam. This equipment was buried 25 feet deep underwater, and no matter how hard Bill tried, he could not reach it. The only way he could get to the machinery was if the dam got drained. But who was going to do that because of one man's curiosity? Bill Oberleuer was never able to retrieve the steam shovel and died before he could see it.
This historic steam shovel lay beneath the waters of Wixom Lake.
In 2020, the Edenville Dam broke, emptying the Wixom Lake, revealing the steam shovel. His sons quickly stepped in and completed the mission their father set out for. Bill Oberleuer was definitely ahead of his time, but at least he will always be remembered as the man who went on a mission to find a sunken steam shovel. When people are not going to find hidden things underwater, the water is bringing those things to them. 2. Yangtze River Statues. We have already established that there are lost cities underwater, but something else that is found underwater are structures from centuries ago that reveal just how artistic humans have always been. A classic evidence was the Yangtze River statues discovered in China in 2023.
Dozens of rivers have dried up, in some cases leading to some surprising discoveries.
The water levels in Asia have been going up and down, showing a rather inconsistent pattern. It is quite dangerous for the people who have houses, businesses, and schools close to the rivers, because a rise in the water level can flood them, and a reduction can cause a drought. But in this case, a reduction in the water level unveiled 600-years-old Buddha statues. The resurfacing of the statue meant one thing. The water level was once low enough for the statues to be placed on that land. So for the water levels to have risen enough to cover them up, then it means something is terribly wrong with the oceans. And this isn't even the only statue that has been found underwater in Southeast Asia. 1. Sra Srang Statues. Sra Srang is an island in Cambodia, and they are not really known for weird stuff, which may explain why you may have never heard of them. But in 2020, many people across the world discovered that the island has way more secrets than they would want the world to know. Right in the middle of the Sra Srang Lake, archaeologists discovered a statue. The statue was of a turtle, and it had been built meticulously because of how intricate it looked. It turned out that a temple was buried right in the middle of the lake, and that turtle was one of the many things the people revered. 2 turtles were found in the Sra Srang Lake almost a week apart from each other. But turtle statues weren't the only thing found at the bottom of this lake. They also found metal tridents and crystals. All these findings make us wonder what Sra Srang would have been like if it never became a tourist spot. Would people still be using that temple, and what purpose did the tridents serve? Not to be a conspiracy theorist, but do you think these findings have any meaning? Is the universe trying to send us a message? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. We have come to the end of this video. What was your favorite underwater discovery? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more wonderful findings across the world.